All right, today we are going to talk about what probably is the most frustrating part about connecting to an Allen Bradley PLC, or actually the most frustrating part about any PLC is how do we configure our communications? And instructors, do not skip this video. Probably the most common question I get is people saying, hey, I took a PLC class and I feel like I know how to program, but the school I went to, IT had all the computers locked down, so we couldn't learn about that part. This is the toughest part of it, and so we are going to be talking about how to connect to the Allen Bradley Compact Guard Logix PLC. But it's exactly the same if we were connecting to this Compact Logix PLC, or really, even though this is not about connecting components workbench, it's the same for the connected for the Micro 850 PLCs, and well, since it's sitting right here, I can't say it's that much different for the Siemens PLCs as far as configuring our IP addresses and getting where we can talk on them. So first of all, in this one, we are going to be using Studio 5000, and this was formerly called RsLinx 5000. And if you just ran into this one and you're not actually following along where we're at, we are in a free course here at twcontrols.com. And if you go to the online course section, then we have Studio 5000, RsLinx 5000 for the Control Logix and Compact Logix PLC. And if we go into it, then what we're building out right now is this comprehensive guide to learning PLCs. So we have a whole lesson series already built out for it, but a lot of the schools really wanted long, comprehensive lessons that the students could go through. And a lot of you, sitting in at night wanted this. Now, there has been a little bit of concern already. Some of you said, hey, I like the short lessons. They're going away. No, they're not going away. They're going to get pushed down. This will be this one chapter near the top. But anytime that you want to come back to the lessons, they're going to be right here. So we've done getting the correct version of the Studio 5000, and then we went through how to wire Control Logix Compact Logix PLC. And yeah, the next piece is configuring our communications. And so in Studio 5000, there's a couple ways you can get here, but if you've ever been in class, I have we always joke it's rule number one, a very strict way of how to get there. So you could drop down this, and we have a go online, and we have an upload. And if we go up to communications, we can kind of actually go online or upload. But I always say, if you want to go online, upload, or download, then we're going to go communications and then who active. Now, I have reset this computer so that it is not going to work at all, because I don't want this to be, well, here's the steps to, hopefully get you there. We're going to go through a lot of the wrong ways to do this. And hopefully we can figure out how to do it the right way when you're staring there in front of the machine with, a bunch of people looking over your shoulder. So in Studio 5000, you're not actually using it to connect directly to the PLC. There's one of two intermediate softwares. Modernly, we have FactoryTalk Linx, and then we'll call it the older one is RsLinx. Now, we still need both softwares depending on our application, but yeah, we're going to start here, and actually, I'm going to close this up because we'll kind of make it like what you'll see. So these two right here are ones that I have added, and we're going to talk through why I've added them later in this. In fact, I should have deleted them before this, but they're actually can be really helpful. So by default in FactoryTalk Linx, so see up here it is saying FactoryTalk Linx, this ABETH1 driver is already configured. And the big question you want to ask yourself are these boxes marching right here? So this is not just a cool little thing that Rockwell does to show that you know how to animate an icon. When this is happening, it is actively trying to update this list. We're going to talk in a second about how this list gets updated. But the other one is we have the USB down here. Now, the USB actually causes us a lot of headaches because it's not really clear always what USB is. From our PLC's perspective, or from our FactoryTalk Linx or RsLinx perspective, the only thing that is actually USB is this printer looking port on the front of the PLC. Now, if you have something that plugs into a USB port on your laptop, and it does not look like this on the other end, that is not USB. Chances are it is some type of serial device. And I'm kind of bouncing back and forth, even in this live stream right now, of okay, do I actually cover that or not? Because we do have other videos that already cover that. And really, the Ethernet one will get you most of the way. Now, going back to schools, this is the other thing I see you do is you're like, well, we use the USB because our laptops are locked down and we can't change our IPs. We've got to get in the room in that conversation. That was maybe acceptable a decade ago. That's not acceptable today. These guys have got to know how to change their IP addresses, how to properly configure them. They've got to, we've got to, this is, there is no machine out there now that doesn't have, a half a dozen or at least Ethernet devices on it. So while USB is cool, you actually don't use it that often in the field. For one, USB is only good for 6 feet. And it's rare you can actually get within 6 foot of a PLC. So let's talk through some of the Ethernet things. So our boxes are marching right now, and we do not have anything showing up on our list. And here's what I always say. This is one of those points that we kind of pair off of, all right, which way do we need to go? So if your boxes are marching and you're seeing a lot of devices in your list, then chances are your problem is that one device is not showing up if you're having a problem. Now, if everything in your list disappears, then chances are the issue is in your computer's configuration. So now we need to know a little bit about IP addresses. First of all, we've got to know what is the IP address of the PLC? And what is the IP address of our computer? So with the compact guard logics, it does display it across it. If you wait long enough, it'll finally scroll across. Now, that doesn't help us any on this Compact Logix PLC, and it doesn't help us any on this MicroLogix PLC. So we're going to need to know, really, we're going to need to inventory our networks. We need to know before we ever start connecting to a plant network what all the IP addresses are. And of course, many of you already know we also have the SIM IPE is another great way to do it. So if I was to plug into this PLC here and we power up the SIM IPE, and then I'm going to go discover device, then this is going to listen out on the network and say, what devices are out here right now? So it's already discovered 33 devices out here. Get a little closer here, a little blurry, but you can see it. And then in this particular IP's case, we actually have a filter option. So we're going to click OK. And then I can sort by name because I know this is a Compact Guard Logix PLC. And I'll click OK. And then I can hit the up arrow. Got some 1756, got a 1766, 1769, some 2080s, a 5032, and finally come to a Compact Guard Logix. And even here we have 2 of them. So we would need to distinguish which one of these actually it is. Now, most devices display their MAC address on the front of them, or in this case, it has a scrolling marquee. And that top item on our SIM IPE is the MAC address. So in this case, this one is 192.168.20.10. And if you purchase one of our PLC trainers, the default IP address on it is 192.168.1.10. So the next thing we have to figure out is, okay, we know that now. How does our computer need to be configured? Or more importantly, currently, how is our computer configured? And so there's a couple of commands that we need to know that we can figure this out with. And what I do, if you're in our class, then we have a very basic step guide, and that's what I'm going to walk you through here of how we can troubleshoot our network connections. Is first, now we know the IP address of our PLC. We're going to see if it's out on the network. And to do that, we're going to actually we're going to actually go to the command prompt. So just go to your start menu. And don't even scroll up and down and try to find it. Just start typing COMM, and you're going to see the command prompt. So we'll open it up. And then I'm going to type PING. And the most difficult piece of this is there is a space right there. And then the IP address of our PLC. So in this case, it's 192.168.20.10. Now hit the enter key. And we're getting a bunch of general failures. Now, 100%, if you cannot ping your PLC, do not go into Studio 5000 and start messing with any driver configurations or anything. The ping command is saying that your Windows computer cannot talk over the network to this PLC. We're not even into the software realm of Studio 5000 yet. And so the other command that we need to know in our command prompt is ipconfig. And this right here, there's two ways you can get this, but this right here, 169.254, if you are seeing this IP address, it means that for some reason, Windows is going and trying to get you an IP address. Now, typically this is because you have it set up to be a DHCP server. And so when we pull up to Starbucks and we can hop on their Wi-Fi and we don't have to do any of this stuff, that's actually how it works. They have a DHCP server and they're automatically assigning you an IP address. Now, on industrial networks, we almost never have a DHCP server. And even then, you're probably not going to be on the right network if you hit one. So we're going to walk through a couple of those. But so now we need to know, how is our computer actually configured? And to do that, we need to go to our Windows network configuration. Now, there is a dozen different ways to do it, but this way actually has worked, I think, since maybe Windows XP. Is we're going to go to our Start menu, and then you're going to fully type it. You don't need to put your hand on the mouse at any point in this. We're going to type ncpa.cpl, enter. And that's a really quick way to open up your Ethernet configuration. And that's worked, yes, since Windows XP. Now it's actually over here. You can right click and you can fumble through. There's many different ways. But there's a quick way to get there. And then depending on how your computer is set up, you may have multiple devices that are over Ethernet. So you may have a Wi-Fi, you may have a wired, you may have a USB to Ethernet. But in this case, I've got it stripped down so there's only one displaying. And we're going to double click on it. And then we're going to go to Properties. And then we're going to double click on Internet Protocol version 4. Now notice there is an Internet Protocol version 6. This is an expanded one that gives us more IP addresses. But as of now, and I believe I may actually be able to retire from this industry and this still be true, we have not adopted it. We're still using the Internet Protocol version 4. So highlight it and go to Properties. And this is how your computer is going to be set by default. Now, since there is not an industrial or a DHCP server out on your network, typically in a plant, then it's going to arbitrarily assign you an IP address of 169.254. Now, very important, this is more for the instructors. There is one training company out there that they tell you to assign, just do a DHCP, and then wait 2 minutes. It's in their instruction guide. Wait 2 minutes, and then you'll have a 169.254, and you should be able to find your PLC. Don't do that. You're not teaching them how to connect to the PLC once they graduate from your course. So we need to understand what our IP address is and then how to configure it. Now, let me talk you through one other issue that you will run into is sometimes if we plug into a plant, there will be a DHCP server. But just because you get assigned an IP address does not mean that you're going to be able to communicate with your PLC. So now I'm going to enable a DHCP server on mine, and then we will plug into that network. And we're going to go over here, and we're going to do, first of all, and I hadn't told you this yet, so first we want to do this ping command again. Now I could type it again, but yeah, most of us aren't great typers. Is if you hit the up arrow, that'll bring your last command into the command prompt there. If you hit your up arrow again, that's your previous one. Now you can hit your down arrow, and that's the one we just did. So we can scroll up and down through the history of our commands. And so first I'm going to try to ping 192.168.20.10. And okay, still got the last time we got a general failure. This time we're getting a request timeout. Now, from the perspective of connecting the PLC, there's not really anything different between a general failure and a request timeout. Until we get to where we're seeing a reply, we don't need to go any further. So now we want to do the other command, and that is the IP config. So I go to it. I hit the enter key, and oh, I do have an IP address. So there was a DHCP server out on my network, and it assigned me an IP address of 192.168.1.220. Now I'm trying to ping 192.168.20.10. And here's where I usually have to stress this is not a networking class. This is how do we get connected to our PLC when we're in front of it out in the plant. But what Tim says is for basic connections, the first three octets, and the octets are those group of numbers. So an octet is a 192, another one is 168, another is 20, and the fourth one is 10 in our case. But those first three have to be the same. And incredibly important, that fourth one has to be unique. Now, we can figure out the first three the same. All we do is compare and contrast. But I want to stress again, the last one being unique, you've got to know your networks before you plug into it. Because we can end up with a lot of bad days. I don't know, for near the end of the stream, I may go ahead and do it. But we can easily take a plant down by not following that last bit of the rule. So in our case, we're trying to communicate with 192.168.20. That's the first three octets or groups of numbers. And our IP address that we were assigned is 192.168.1. And so our first three are not the same, so chances are we're not going to be able to communicate. Now, just a slight segue into the why, I don't want to go too far in the why in this, is it actually all has to do with this subnet right here. And so our subnet is 255.255.255.0. And what I see about subnets is how tall of a wall do I want to build so that I'm only going to talk to myself? And they're lined up on an octet as well. So if I'm 255 here, I'm only talking to 192. If I'm 255 here, I'm only talking to 168. And if I'm 255 here, I'm only talking to 1. So since the PLC is on 20, it's going to look at this and say, nope, not interested in talking to you. Now, just in case you're curious what happens to that traffic that doesn't match gets sent to this default gateway. But really on an industrial network, at this point, we're probably far enough the weeds that we just need to realize we have the wrong IP configuration. So now we're going to go over here and we're going to double click on our Ethernet. Go back to the network connections that we got through the ncpa.cpl. And we're going to double click on Ethernet, go back to properties, and we're going to go to TCP version 4. And then, so we're going to try to set one on our own. So I'm going to enter, and I'm going to enter the wrong one to start with because y'all are going to enter the wrong one, or it's already going to be assigned to the wrong one. It's not necessary that you're doing anything wrong. I'm going to enter 192.168.1, and then 196. Now, you can't see me do it, but I'm going to hit the tab key on my keyboard. And the moment I hit the tab key, notice Windows filled in what is a typical subnet for that IP address. So that part gets done for you. But very similarly, I'm 255 here, I'm only talking to 192. 255 here, I'm only talking to 168. 255 here, I'm only going to talk to 1. But let's go ahead and hit OK on that so you see what that looks like when we do our ping. So go back over here. I'm going to hit my up arrow to my ping command. And when I try to ping, we're back to that general failure. And then we go to our IP config. And we use that basic networking rule for basic connections. Our first three octets, in this case 192.168.20 and 192.168.1, they have to match. Since they're not going to match, they're not going to talk. Now let's just go see what this looks like, because we do have an IP address now. And I'm seeing nothing here. So, oops. So if this list is not filling up at all, then we don't need to go into our network configuration or any of these buttons up here. We're going to learn about them in a little bit. We need to hit this ping. If we can't ping, then we're back at this network configuration again. And so this time we're going to go back in, hit properties, go to Internet Protocol version 4, and I'm going to change that third octet to a 20. And still, I can't stress to y'all enough how important it is that you make sure this fourth one is unique. If we don't, then we're going to have a lot of mess on our hands. Then we're going to click OK. We're going to click OK. We're going to hit close. And I know we're excited. We want to get back to studio, but I'm going to tell you every time you do this, hit that ping first so you don't wander off, thinking you may have it fixed and something else going on. So I'm going to hit my up arrow. There's my ping. And now when I ping, I'm getting a reply. And, again, this is not a networking class. I don't care about bytes. I don't care about times. I don't care about TTLs. Our only question is, did we get a reply from the IP address that we pinged? And we did. And so now we're ready to go on to Studio 5000. And so I'll go over here and, if anybody from Rockwell actually happens to be watching this, I can't nail down this particular flaw or my timing in this because, we run this class every other week. And some weeks it works beautifully. Some weeks, like, it's 50-50. And some weeks we're like, how come nobody's seen it? But we have a ping. We feel everything's good. And nothing is showing up in our list. Now, if you are sure that you have done this, one, we could simply close the WhoActive and go back. But all we have to do is take focus off it. So single click up on the word FactoryTalk Linx, and then single click right back on the word Ethernet. Now, I have not nailed down what causes that, but there is a random occurrence where that happens. That's all I can tell you about that. And so now we can see our PLC. And yes, I know you're excited. You want to go online, you want to upload, you want to do something. But let's talk about a couple other things here. First of all, this is FactoryTalk Linx. And for the most part, when should we use FactoryTalk Linx? Pretty much whenever we're using Ethernet or USB, unless Rockwell software tells us otherwise, is what I always tell everybody. So in modern applications that we should do. Now, if we get into RsLinx 5000, that's going to be older than FactoryTalk Linx. So we're going to have to use RsLinx. So I want us to see that one too. So we're going to go and close this. And then we're going to go communications. Now, notice I don't have a program open. You can only do this without a program open. And then we have select communications software. And right here is where we can actually toggle between FactoryTalk Linx and RsLinx Classic. And we're going to click OK to that. And now let's go communications WhoActive. And here is probably the Achilles heel I felt always of RsLinx Classic. Oops, let me check that box. That's not normally unchecked. By default, when you installed RsLinx, the only driver that was actually configured was Linx Gateway via Ethernet. And there's only one worthless thing in all of RsLinx, and that's called Linx Gateway via Ethernet. Now, if you notice when we were in FactoryTalk Linx, there were some buttons up here, and this is very important. I think Rockwell has done a stellar job with some of the improvements to it. If you're in RsLinx, you have to know RsLinx software actually exists because there's no way to configure it here. In other words, we can't right-click. All we can do is remove. We can't right-click there and do anything. So if we go to our Start menu and we take our hand off the mouse and start typing RsLinx, then you're going to see probably RsLinx Classic. Now, there's many different versions of RsLinx. There was RsLinx Single Node, there was RsLinx Professional, there was RsLinx OEM. There's a lot of them, but they all, from our purpose of connecting, they all did the same thing. So we're going to click on it. And if it does not pop up, depending on how old your computer is, it may not pop up. And this can get super frustrating. Used to, it would be running as a service down here. There, see this little icon right here? You would keep going to the Start menu, you would keep opening that thing up, and it would never open, and it was down here. You'd have to click it down here, and that would pop it up. And then here's where we can configure our drivers for this. And so we go to communications and we have configure drivers. I already have a couple of them in here, but if you did not know to do this, it got really miserable. So we're going to come back to this one in a second. I want to jump back over to FactoryTalk Linx, and we're going to talk most of this through the rest of it. So I'm just going to minimize this, and then we're going to close this, because note, we have none of those buttons up here, or icons. And so I'm going to close this. Communications, we're going to switch back to FactoryTalk Linx. And it's going to warn us, and actually this kind of is an important warning. FactoryTalk Linx is still being developed. There are a few items that don't fully work as well as they do in RsLinx yet. But now we're going to go communications to active. And notice while we are in, oops, we got to wait for that timeout. Oh, that was fast. Notice while we are in FactoryTalk Linx as our communication software, we have a few icons here. Now, incredibly important, this first icon, because actually I'd actually done it in RsLinx and I saw it. This is the auto browse. So see these boxes marching right here? This is super important, these boxes. But if we accidentally check that box or uncheck that box or take it from semi-yellowish to not yellowish, I don't even know how you look at that one. Notice they are not bouncing now. They're not marching. And if that animation is not happening, this list will not be updating. So you'll go in and try to be connecting to something that's not there, or you won't see something, and it's because somebody's accidentally hit this button. So we want to make sure that that looks kind of yellowish. The one to the left of it, I hear that it's a networking icon, but it looks like a 110-volt plug to me. This is the important one. This is the configure drivers one. So we're going to hit it. And if we go over to RsLinx, that was communications, configure drivers. So that's the exact same spot in them. Now, what they did so stellarly in FactoryTalk Linx is Rockwell actually configured what was probably the most common driver needed and put it in there by default. Whereas in RsLinx, there was nothing configured except for that pesky Linx gateway via Ethernet. So I'm just going to double click on the ABETH one so we can talk about a little bit of it. And so mainly here we have the discovery method. And so the broadcast discovery method is one of them. The other is the device list range. Now, in RsLinx, if we hit our available driver types, there are two Ethernet of driver types. We have the Ethernet IP driver, and we have the Ethernet device driver. The Ethernet IP driver is that broadcast discovery method. The Ethernet devices is that device range. So let's talk a little bit, again, this isn't a networking class, but a little bit just how that works. So with the broadcast discovery method, your computer actually sends out a packet and says, hey, are there any Ethernet IP devices out here? And all the Ethernet IP devices, notice that was not all the Ethernet devices, all the Ethernet IP devices say, hey, here I am. So this compact guard Logix, it's going to send something back saying that. This PowerFlex, it's going to send something back. This Turk.io module, it is Ethernet IP, it'll send something back. So all those type of devices will respond. And that is what is going to be filling this list that you see through here. Now, I'd always say in classes, in our class, there's 8 technicians max in. And I'd always say, okay, now there's 8 of you here. If I was to say, are you here? And y'all responded, here I am. Could I probably distinguish 8 of you? And they are not. They're like, yeah, probably. And I'm like, well, what if there were 800 of you in this room? And they're like, no. And so it's a really beneficial feature for us. But as our networks build out, IT looks at this traffic and they're like, hey, this is a lot of just static sitting out on my network. And so they are going to start using routers and other devices to kind of block these packets just to pare down that excess traffic. So in those cases, you're not going to be able to use this discovery method. And we'd always say this is, when you're going through some VLANs, VPNs, internets, or any of those acronyms that we probably don't even half understand what mean, that's usually when the broadcast discovery method's not going to work. And in those cases, we're going to need that other driver type, the device range, in the case of FactoryTalk Linx and the Ethernet devices in RsLinx. So we're going to configure both of those. So we're going to hit that second icon, the 110 volt looking plug that's supposedly a networking thing. And then I already have a few configured, but what I'm going to say is I'm going to leave this one. I'm going to go ahead and add a new one here. And so in this case, here's the next thing Rockwell really did that I think made this stellar, is they defaulted the one that's built into broadcast. And when you go to add that second one, it knows you probably need device range. So we could add another broadcast, but I don't know why there would be a reason for a second broadcast. I don't know. There is a remote local thing, but I haven't ever used it. And so now, instead of sending out this broadcast saying, is anybody out there, this is going to say, I want to go talk to this particular device. So I'm going to enter 192.168.20.10. So in this case, it's not going to look at this power flex. It's not going to be looking for this. It's only, arguably, I know it's not exactly it, but just like we use the ping to direct a packet to exactly there, now these packets are only going to go to this one spot. So it's going to get us out of any type of things that may be blocking broadcast. Some, and I said, VLANs and, VPNs and things like that, but some security services, and maybe actually somebody earlier today had an issue. I didn't think about that. This is probably their issue because I know they were trying to block IP addresses, trying to make something work, and they couldn't. But I bet this was probably it. They probably have some type of security service that's blocking these kind of mystery packets that they didn't know what is. But since we're telling you what IP address to go to, this can go through any of these hops through various routers. This can go through the internet. Pretty much anything that we can ping, we probably can make show up in our list now. So we're going to go ahead and click OK on this one. Oops. And I'm going to go back in there. I want to give this a little bit of a name, because it can get really confused. And I do go to some of you come in and I'll look at yours and you'll have like ABETH 1, 2, 3, 4 through 11 or something. Give it a name that we know what it is. Now, if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, you should. So I'm going to name this one Subscribe. And we'll click OK. And then we're going to click Close to this. And I'm going to close this up. And right there we have Ethernet Subscribe. And we open it up, and now we see just our PLC. Notice we do not see all the other things we saw in that broadcast discovery method. Now, a couple of things while we're here is let's go ahead and hit that 110 volt plug or the configure icon, driver icon, and let's double click back on subscribe. And let's put a wrong one in this time. So I'm going to add new. And I'm going to accidentally make a typo. I'm going to put 192.168.2.10. And we'll click OK. And we'll click OK. And now we get this. Now, very important. Now, actually, I will do this in do this in RsLinx too, just so we see a little bit difference about the icons. First of all, we have a yellow question mark. Yellow question mark does mean this thing's unknown. It doesn't know what exactly is going on. But in this case, we also have a red little asterisk to the right of it. This means this device is not out there. So if you have that, then don't try to go online. And I just hit the button like a fool trying to highlight it for you. But there you go. Don't try to go online, because it's going to be like, I can't find this thing. And here's one of those times that double check your IP, do your pings, do your basics, and make sure. Now, we can end up also with the yellow question mark. So let me go find a device that already has that. Here we go. Yep, because I don't have the driver installed on this computer for the Yamaha. So we're going to go back to our configure drivers. And then we're going to double click on the subscribe. And we're going to add another new one. And this one's going to be 192.168.20.14. And we'll go and click OK on that. And we'll close that. All right, so now this one right here is a yellow asterisk. That means it can't communicate with it. This one right here just has a yellow question mark, no little asterisk. That means it can talk to this. It just doesn't know what it is. And in these cases, typically it's that you need to install the EDS file or the electronic data sheet, and that'll get that to go away. All right, let's do that in RsLinx just so we can understand the little bits of difference. So first of all, I'm going to double click on the ABETH. And really, this driver is fairly self-explanatory. You want to select the adapter that you feel you're communicating with. Now, I have this one pared down, so it doesn't really matter which one I pick. But mainly look at the IP address, because Windows gets pretty angry if you try to make two adapters have the IP addresses on the same network. And then when I go into it, there's going to be all of our devices out there. Now, really cool feature, going back to it, notice we have 192.168.10.66 here. This is not on our network, but through a router or something, those packets, those broadcast packets, it is managed in the response. So here is someone, and you may see this, I should have probably, that's all right. That's a little out of the weeds of this video. This device, whatever it is, somebody in the OT networking has configured this so that you would be able to talk to it. But okay, let's just look at the way the device range would look, or I'm sorry, the Ethernet devices in RsLinx. So we're going to go and we're going to select an Ethernet devices driver, and we're going to click Add New. And yeah, just so they match, we're going to make this one also name Subscribe. And not as intuitive here, it's not telling you an IP address, but this host name is the IP address. So we want 192.168.20.10. And just so we can see that mistake that I made, I'm going to hit Add New. And we're going to make 192.168.2.10. And then let's add new again. We'll put that Yamaha in there. So 192.168.20.14. We'll click OK on that. We'll click Close on that. And right now we have Subscribe down here. We open it up and give it a second. There's 2 devices. And we give it a second. And there goes a third device. And we think we're good. We give it a little bit more here. And we should get a red X over this one. There it goes. And now we have a red X. So let me just drag this over just so we can see the difference in these two. So FactoryTalk, I don't really know why they did this, but they decided to kick this out and make it where you had a yellow question mark, and then to the right of it, they have a little asterisk now. Used to, it was a red X right over top of the icon. This right here means it cannot talk to this device. This right here means it is talking to the device. It just doesn't know what this particular device is. And this one right here, we would be ready to connect with. Now, I realize that was 38 minutes to get us to this upload, download, and go online button over here. But let's talk about this because this is incredibly important. And we're going to spend a few more minutes on it before. Yes, I know there's some questions in the chat, and I am going to get to those. But all right, so we have go online, upload, and right now download is grayed out. And this is why I think this step is so important. Is notice earlier I said we had no file open. So here's kind of my rule is if you have never been connected to a PLC, do not have a file open, not even a blank file. And this is so important because Wednesday of our class, that's the day that they reverse engineer an unfamiliar machine. And they're walking into it completely blind. They know no IPs. They know anything. They finally figure out the IP. They manage to get the computer configured, and they're sitting there staring at it. I'll say 75% of the time, they create a new blank program, trying to get it configured the way that PLC actually is. So two things. First of all, you're having to do a lot of guesswork about how that thing's actually configured. Are you sure you know what this module was? Are you sure you know what this module was? All that good stuff. Also, we have the danger of the download button. And that is what I'm trying to steer you away from, and them away from, and myself away from, honestly, because sometimes I'll accidentally do it. So I just want us to go ahead and close this out. And I'm going to go grab a file. And I'm not even worried about what file it is. I'm just grabbing a file, any old file. And then I'm going to go communications, who active. And mainly notice now we have the download button. That's the only danger I'm trying to keep you away from by saying if you've never been connected to it, don't have a file open. So I'm going to go file close. Then we'll go back to communications, who active. And then especially since it's grayed out, we probably figure out, oh, well, download doesn't seem right. Now, depending on what industry you're coming from, you may be like, well, no, I do download my music from my Spotify app. I do download my YouTube videos. Why wouldn't I download this PLC program? PLCs are the opposite of the internet. And I hear a lot of things about how to remember it. Actually, I had somebody like 4 months ago finally say something. I'm like, wow, why have I never thought of that one? But download equals downtime. Upload equals uptime. Because yes, if you accidentally download to the wrong PLC, or you accidentally download when you think you're uploading, you're going to take that PLC down. And if you want to pull the program out of it, it is upload. So we're going to go upload. And so you notice down here, it now says it's creating a project. It's doing all types of fun stuff. So it's building out everything you need. And then we get to this prompt. And this prompt probably causes us more grief. And I've always wondered exactly why there's not a button right here that says create new. But it makes you feel right here like you need to select a file. But if we actually read words, but yes, I know none of us actually ever read words until we're in the knee deep in the weeds and can't figure it out. It says the project file station 10 was not found in your project directory. Select new or existing project file. And then we go up here, and usually we end up fumbling around trying to find where our file might be. But it actually had filled in station 10 ACD. And if we read the prompt, it actually says enter new or select existing. So all we needed to do was hit the select key right here. Now let's talk about a few bad ways to do it though. Because yeah, we want to learn some of the pitfalls here. Let's go ahead and let's open a file again. I'm going to go ahead and just open this file. And then we're going to go communications, who active. And go and cancel that because I'm not even going on to that PLC. I just wanted to grab a file. Yep, I know you can't find it because I have it shut off, and we're going to be right here on this. This is the one we've been working with. And I'll always ask the technicians, all right, do we want to go online, upload, or download? And a lot of them will say, well, we need to go online first. And I always tell them you can always choose one. So let's see what happens, though. Why can't we just hit the go online? So I'm going to hit the go online. Actually, I'm just realizing I picked a bad file for this. So let's pick a different file. Let's pick this file. And now, we'll do it one more time. Which one it'll be a little faster because that one I believe is online, but we're going to go up here and select this one. And yeah, this time we're going to hit the go online button. And Here's one of those times I've always wondered, why on earth did they put a download button right here? Because already we're half confused most of the time about, are we supposed to upload? Are we supposed to download? We were trying to go online, and now we have a download button, and we're thinking, oh yeah, I should download the program out of the PLC. But no, we download to the PLC. We upload from the PLC. Now, very important prompt here. This prompt has saved me so much money. And you guys that are going out on site and you're getting a customer call and saying that your machine has crashed, this is an incredibly important prompt. So first of all, we do have our controller names. Now, our controller names arguably could be the same. In fact, that's why I was picking that other one, because this is a replacement for that one. So we may go to, I don't know, TW Controls, and they may have every controller named TW Controls. But these serial numbers, unless somebody changes the PLC out, they will be unique. So that's my red flag right there that this is not the correct program for this PLC. Now, here's the important part is, what if you get this prompt and they are the same serial number? And so I had a customer call me one day, and it was a really bad crash. And of course, they're blaming me. And I went out there and I got this prompt. And I'm like, well, wait, who's been online with this PLC? And of course, they're like, well, nobody has. Just get in there and figure out what's wrong with it. I'm like, no, somebody's been online with this PLC. This screen right here shifted the blame off of me, because I'm like, no, somebody has been online with this PLC. And even there, we got that prompt. For some crazy reason, somebody put a download button right here, and the guy thought that they had the right program. And they're like, oh, yeah, it's the right program. And they just hit the download button. Well, they had the machine that was the side of it, which was almost the same machine, except the length was different on it. So they tried to take the short machine a long distance, and that did not work out well for that machine. So that's why on the prompt before this, I tell everybody, you got to make a conscious choice. So first of all, we go communications, we go who active. Then right now, we got to make a choice between go online, upload, and download. Okay, we've never connected this machine before. Why do we have a download button? Oh, because I have a file open. That's definitely a no-no. So then I'm going to go file, close, and then we go communications who active. Now, first of all, that pairs down my download. I no longer need to know download or upload. Now, the go online and upload thing. If you feel you have the correct copy of the program, or you've been connected to the machine before, that's when we would go online. If we've never been connected to this machine, that is when we would upload. So then we would hit the upload just like we did earlier. We would get that prompt to select a file, and then we would give it a name. Now, if we feel we have been connected to this machine before, then we want to go over here and we want to go find that file, which I thought was going to be in my recent, but oh, there it is. That is not that file. So here you go. Well, let's go find it. So we go open. And then I'm going to go over here. Then we're going to PLC training. And this is in the PLC lab. And this is the 5069 trainer. That's the right file. I guess I thought I had it open earlier today. So I feel this is the file in that PLC. So if you feel it's in the file in the PLC, I still don't want you doing these. I know we got to go online and upload and download, but are you sure it's the right PLC? And here's another important reason to have your offline file paths, is that tells us that 192.168.20.10, that was it. But I still want you to go here. We want to do a last visual check and make sure that we feel that this should be TRN ICP RA5000, that it shouldn't be Station 10 or something. And we have to go online, and literally we should blink our eye and be like, oh, am I online? And so, yeah, that tells us that we had the correct file. No changes have been made, or no major changes have been made. and we're good to go. All right, so a couple things here. Let's see what we got here. MicroLogix 1500. Do you have a course I could use? Yes, we do have a course on that. So if we go back over here and we go to twcontrols.com and go to online courses, at least as of today, and this one may get pushed down as we add a few. Now, a little bit about our courses. So here's our connected components and our Studio 5000 and our industrial control wiring. These arguably are the three big, whoops, I didn't highlight real well. These are the three big courses that most people use with our trainers. Now, we also have two in development right there now that are going to get pushed up there. They all asked enough about these that they'll definitely become full-blown courses. So we have inductive automations, HMI ignition software, which we can use with any of these PLCs. And then we have Siemens TIA portal, and that one y'all have asked a lot about. So we're going to be doing that one. This course may get pushed down. I'm not really sure yet. And this course probably is going to get merged into this just to kind of clear up the clutter. But yeah, right here's your RsLinx 500. Let's see, where can I buy a cheap PLC for home use with an Ethernet port? Well, eBay. I mean, eBay's where I tell everybody, in fact, I'm getting ready to list one on eBay. Actually, it may use as a giveaway. That would be a kind of a good feeling giveaway. I have a PLC, a Micro 820, and I don't know what's wrong with it. It works beautifully, but every time you cycle power, it faults. Well, big whoop if you're trying to learn that, but you can find a lot of them that have burn up outputs, things like that. That would be a good way. Can I use the IP Explorer for different PLC product? Michael, fire up the tall tables, please. Yes, you absolutely can.
Do what?
Yes, hit the tall tables, please. If you didn't know what the tall tables is, a section here that has it has a few different devices. But so you actually saw earlier the IPE discovering a few devices. We'll give those about a minute to boot up. See, there was one other thing I was going to talk about on the Ethernet. Where was I at with that? Did I? Yeah, no, we did the RsLinx. We switched between them. So for the most part, just a little bit on that. Going back is, and actually, there's somebody challenged me on this the other week, and I'm not really sure, but I'm still going to say it. For the most part, try to use the broadcast discovery method. If you can't ping the device, do not switch to the device range. That's the only, it's kind of Rockwell, it's a double-edged sword for Rockwell. They did a great justice to us. They added FactoryTalk Linx right here. So that I think in another 5 years, I don't know half the people are going to know FactoryTalk Linx exists, because really this button right here is all we need. Now, the only downside of that is you see this little asterisk right here. Let's say we're trying to connect to this PLC trainer because this is one of our trainers. It's our test station. And you're like, I can't connect to it, especially after you get through with all the cancels. The first thing everybody in our class, not just you, want to do is you want to go configure your drivers and try to change something, which usually means you go here and you start switching this over to device list, which means you lose your broadcast. And then next thing you know, you find out the cable is laying on the floor, or in this case, this test station is turned off. And then by the time you fix it all, you've messed up your configuration. Remember the ping. So if you don't see it there, ping the device. The ping is really the key one. No good ping, the problem's in your Windows configuration, or it could be the PLC's turned off. Good ping, that's when we go into our driver configuration. All right, Michael's got our tall tables fired up, and so now we're going to go on the IPE. This is a PLC Tools SIM IPE, and we're just going to go to Discover Device. And so what it's doing right now is those same broadcast packets it's actually listening for. Now, when we talk FactoryTalk Linx and RsLinx, we're only talking, I wish I could get that focused a little better, but I have to switch my manual focus off, which is always a pain. I may do it in a second anyway. But yeah, we're going to have to. Hold on, let me see if I can get that a little clearer for you. So configure video, camera control, check that box. Let's see, and usually I shove this all the way this way. Of course, I can't see what I'm doing right now. Oh, that was worse. Let me try that again. Michael, are you watching this? Well, thanks. So since Michael's not watching this, I'm going to have to blindly do this. Maybe it's that I shifted the other way. Let's see. Oh, there. Okay. Let's try that. There we go. Now y'all can see. So whereas FactoryTalk Linx and RsLinx, they do Ethernet IP. This actually does Ethernet IP. It also listens for Profinet and GigE and does a few other things to help you discover it. So it's discovered 47 devices out on the network. And so, yeah, let's just take a moment to go through them. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the OK button. That's going to let me filter. And then since you were asking about different brands, I'm going to sort by name. That'll get them at least sort of by kind of model number. All right, so first I have got to find this device. It's been wandering around my network for a couple months now, and I haven't been able to find it. But I have a device somewhere here that does not have an IP address assigned. And now I can tell up here that it's probably not an industrial device. When we get to an industrial device, I'll show you why. And then we have an ARP entry. And so your ARP entries are typically computers or devices that don't support industrial protocols. So I know that 192.168.20.200 is a PC. And so that's what that's going to look like. Now, here's an Allen Bradley item. Or Rockwell. I don't know if I'll ever get used to calling them Rockwell. But so if you notice on the MAC address, the beginning of your MAC actually tells you what it is. So the reason it's alternating between the beginning of the MAC and Rockwell is that is the code for Rockwell. But so there's a 1734, and yeah, it's a Rockwell device. There's another 1734. There's a 1756. That's a ControlLogix. There's a 1766. That's a MicroLogix 1400. There's a 1769. That's a CompactLogix. That's a 2080. That's a Micro 850. There's another Micro 850. There's another Micro 850. There's another Micro 850. There's a Micro 820. Another Micro 820. All right, this 2198. That's a Kinetics drive. There's another 2198. And then we have a 2711. Yes, all the Rockwells are grouped together because their model numbers are kind of similar. That is a PW800. There's a 440C. That's going to be a Rockwell CR30 safety relay. And there's a 5032. That is a IO-Link module by Rockwell. And we should be all right. Now we're getting out of the Rockwell. So this is what a Baluf or Baluf, depending on how you believe in pronouncing it. This is what their IO-Link would look like. This right here is a Banner DXM. Well, that's pretty obvious. That is a Banner DXM because it says it right there. There's a second Banner DXM. So these are IO-Link modules by Banner Engineering. So that's a compact Logix from Allen Bradley. There's another compact from Allen Bradley. Here's another one from Allen Bradley. Oh, yeah, that's right, because the tall tables, that also gets those there. There's an E300 from Allen Bradley. Okay, and here's all that to get to something like this. If you notice it's alternated up here, this is a Siemens device. So this is over Profinet. This is an ET200 SP. Yes, I know Siemens people, you have Proneta, but you can't take Proneta and see Ethernet IP devices. So this is what people are a lot of people will be like, well, I can kind of do that with Boot P and Rockwell. I'm like, I get it, but this device will do it all. There's a FIN20. This is what a Turk IO-Link module looks like. So, it's only what they report. It's all we get. So we can tell it's a Turk by the MAC, and then they just report their model number. IO-Link Master. This, I'm not going to mention this. Oh, well, I guess I am going to mention this brand because it says it up there, but IFM would be great if you could report a little bit better right there. You got an awesome IO-Link module, but yeah, IO-Link Master doesn't tell us a lot. There's PowerFlex 525. These are Allen Bradley, Rockwell. There you go. I would never be able to say Rockwell. That's an SC210. So here's a Banner device. So we can see up there on the Mac is telling us it's a Banner. And then, okay, so here are more Siemens devices. These are Ethernet switches. I kind of feel Siemens kind of has the best Ethernet switch for the money. So that's why you're going to see a lot of those up through there. And then my mind is going blank on what a TB. Oh, that's a Turk. This is another IO-Link. And there's a Yamaha. This is a robot controller from Yamaha. Probably the easiest to integrate robot out on the market with a Allen Bradley PLC. That's a linear actuator by Yamaha. And Oh, I don't even know where. Okay. That's really interesting. I have no idea what's going on there, but okay, this is making a DHCP request for a really specific IP. That's interesting. But yeah, so I've got a couple I need to nail down on that. But hopefully that helps out with that. And hopefully that helps get you connected to the PLC. And instructors, please don't skip over this lesson. If you're like, well, IT hasn't locked down, I can't do it. We got to figure out how to get that thing unlocked, because this is the struggle that I see everybody coming out in the field. This is number one. So now you've got your software. We've done our wiring. We've got it figured out how to communicate, and we're ready to do some programming. So in the next live stream, we are going to go through our basic bit instructions, which arguably make up 80% of all your PLC programs. And once that is out, I will put a link to it right here.